So this weekend marks the second round of the Alliance National Football League with some tasty games in Division 1 North and South. And supposed to look forward to probably what is the most intriguing game in Division 1 North is the old age-old rivals Tyrone and Armagh going head-to-head. Former Armagh player who's not too shy of these games, Steven McDonnell, joins me. Stephen, I suppose like myself as a Liverpool fan, you're probably still in cloud nine from last night.
Yeah, I'm more in cloud nine from Alison Becker's goal at the weekend, which kept our hopes alive. Yeah, maybe a couple of weeks ago we couldn't have seen that any possibility of Liverpool having the chance of finishing in the top four, but it's looking likely now at the minute, and let's hope to see it out now on Sunday.
Yeah, one last push on Sunday against Crystal Palace. But I suppose the big question is, by the time that game kicks off, is who's going to have two more points on the table? It'll be Armagh or Tyrone by Saturday evening. They play in the Morgan Electric grounds. A good start for Armagh last weekend. Their first time back up in Division 1 for the first time in 9 years. I think when you were still technically an Armagh player at the time.
That's right, yeah. So it's a long time waiting for Armagh to get back up to the top tier. And last weekend was very important for them, simply just to build confidence and to get off to a winning start and to allow them that opportunity to showcase their skills against the better teams in the country. And, you know, when you look at Monaghan over the last number of years, they've been very, very competitive in Division 1 and they've beat the likes of Kerry and Dublin as well. So it was a decent result for Armagh and one that they should take a lot of confidence away from.
Yeah, they started the game very strongly. They were 1-3 to nothing up before Monaghan even kind of scored. And then they finished the game really strong because in that kind of third quarter, you could say after half time, you know, they exchanged the leads, I think, and were level 6 times. And then to kind of really kick on and get 5 of the last 6 games and see the game out, considering they're not used to playing at that level.
Yeah. Listen, there was parts of their game was very impressive, and you know there was parts that they've got work to do. And you said that they got off the fantastic start, which they didn't. They possibly could have even been further ahead at the start, but they go 1-3 to not up. But they allowed Monaghan back into the game at that stage, and that's maybe been a downfall of Armagh sides over the last.
Hello?
Sorry, there was a phone call coming through there. I had to cut it off. Are you still there? That's okay, yeah? Yeah, so, a downfall to Armagh's play over the last couple of seasons has been allowing teams back in the games when they've been, or seem to have been comfortable in games. And the pleasing factor at the weekend was every time Monaghan get back at them, and particularly when they drew level, Armagh went straight up the field within 30 seconds on most occasions and kicked the point to go ahead again. And that's the sign of a team that's maturing.
Yeah, I think a lot was made kind of as well during the off season with McGeaney bringing in Kieran Donaghy kind of for the forward play. And I think it's always been established over the last couple of years. Armagh really have some nice, tasty forwards, some of the best in the country. But defensively, maybe they've been a little bit got at. But I was just looking at the other day, like they only gave up out of Monaghan's 1-12, 1-5 from open play. So to only give away 6 scores from open play was pretty impressive. I know Conor McManus didn't come on to half time, and maybe the likes of Kieran Hughes didn't come on later in the second half, but you still had the likes of Colin McCarthy and Michael Brannigan, who would be regarded as danger forwards on the pitch as well. So how much do you think as well credit must go there to bringing in Kieran McKeever, of course, someone you played with? He was a tough, solid defender back in his day.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why Kieran McGeaney brought these guys in to make a difference. Kieran McKeever's brought in to make a difference and to tighten up the defence. And Kieran Donaghy was brought in to make the attack, I suppose, more of a threat. And we know that Armagh certainly have potential up front, and at the back, you know, conceding frees has been an issue. But I have absolutely no doubt that Kieran McKeever, given his pedigree as a defender, will certainly work to rectify the weaknesses in Armagh's defence over the last couple of seasons, and the early signs have been positive from Armagh's point of view. And you know, it's not taking anything away from the players who's playing at the back, because each and every one of them are certainly fantastic footballers, but collectively they just need to probably work that wee bit better together.
Yeah, they move on now to play Tyrone at home on Saturday evening. It was interesting listening to kind of a press conference Kieran McGeaney did before the start of the league, and he was kind of already resignating himself to like just having to win that one-off game against someone from Division 1 South to stay up. But now they've got 2 points in the bank. Do you think now that there's 2 kind of free hits, they've got win one of these matches against Donegal and Tyrone, and that's Division 1 status secured, and you could be even looking at a semi-final?
Yeah, listen, I really do believe that this weekend's game will be the game that they'll be looking to get points in. Armagh and Tyrone games down through the years have traditionally been tight affairs. Yes, maybe over the last number of seasons, Tyrone have gained the advantage in that regard, but Armagh will have confidence going into this game on the back of a positive result last weekend. And while Tyrone run Donegal close, had some fantastic performers in that game as well. It all depends what type of mindset they'll come into this game as well. But I expect that they'll be full of belief and confidence as well. Because anytime I played against Tyrone, even when they weren't getting the best results beforehand, they always come in with oozing with confidence when they faced Armagh. And maybe it's a case of Armagh just dragging the best out of Tyrone and vice versa. And hopefully that we can see that within the Armagh ranks this weekend.
Yeah, it's a new era for your neighbours there in Tyrone with Fergal Logan and Browne taking over.
Yeah.
Did you get much of a chance to watch their game against Donegal on Saturday evening? I kind of felt second half they kind of struggled for scores. They were very heavy relying on Paul Donaghy. I think Michael Bradley was the only other person to score. And then I was listening to Brendan Donaghy's Brendan Devaney's podcast, and he had Peter Canavan on it, and he was kind of quite critical and felt maybe that they could have pushed up a little bit more on the Donegal kick-out.
Yeah, I do think we will see a more attacking Tyrone side this year, and I wrote about it last week myself that I thought they would probably apply a wee bit more cautious going into the game against Donegal, because given the way Donegal play, and they're a fantastic counter-attacking team, and they can really, really punish you on the break. So I do believe against Armagh, they will probably throw the shackles off a wee bit more and believe in their attacking prowess a wee bit more. And therefore, as we know, they've got plenty of attacking options. Will Paul Donaghy score 10 points against Armagh? I hope not. He's a fantastic footballer, and what a debut he made. But I just hope that he doesn't reach those heights again. But there's added pressure on Paul Donaghy going into this weekend's game now because of what he done against Donegal. And to score 10 points in your debut is a fantastic achievement for any player, but particularly when you're playing against a seasoned team like Donegal that know how to squeeze opponents out and press them further away from their own goals. And that was certainly a massive performance from Paul. But the likes of Conor McKenna will be a massive player for Tyrone this weekend as well, and he'll take a huge amount to stop him as well. And he probably wasn't at the same heights that he was at when he came into the campaign late last year, but last weekend, but I'm sure he will have settled himself down and found his feet again, and will get going again soon. Matty Donnelly, as we all know, is a fantastic footballer. Tyrone have an abundance of talented players. I manage a club team up in Tyrone and Clonoe, and one of my star attackers is Conor McCalliskey, and he couldn't even make the Tyrone squad last week. So I would hope that he doesn't make it this week as well, because he's a fantastic scoring threat for Tyrone. And if players like Conor isn't able to make it, that I do believe that he should be in it, but I'd be glad to see him out of it, because I know he adds a lot to the firepower as well.
You're hoping he saves his best form till next August and September time?
That's what I would certainly be hoping for. I don't want to see him scoring too much against Armagh, that's for sure. But he was left out of the squad last week. It was after there was a bit of talk about why they would leave a player of his ability out of the squad, and I was surprised by it myself. But listen, the two new managers, Fergal and Browne, are in to, I suppose, set their own stall out, and every manager has the right to do whatever they want to do. And but what I'm saying is, if they can afford to leave players of that caliber and capability out of their squad, that tells me that they've got a seriously strong squad.
Yeah, I think one kind of theory that maybe a lot of people might have felt with the regional leagues this year, especially with Division 1 North, the fact that it is all 4 Ulster teams, and say with the way the fixtures fell last weekend, if the draw goes right in the quarterfinals, they probably should be the 2 semi-final pairings, and there might be a little bit of shadow boxing. But it's kind of quite clear from what you're kind of saying that that's not anything that's entering the Armagh mindset, and that it's firmly in focus on getting the kind of results, and we'll worry about championship then come the summertime.
Yeah, I don't think Armagh can afford to take their eye off the ball in the league. It's not a case where Armagh where they have been competing in Division 1 football for the last number of years. They're only up there after being in the doldrums for 9 years, so they have to go up and put their best foot forward, and that's what they done last weekend, and they'll continue to do that, and take the championship as it comes whenever it comes. But it's probably a wee bit different for the likes of the Donegals and Tyrones, who can leave some of their more seasoned players, likes of Conor McManus, even with Monaghan out of their starting 15, but Armagh really can't afford to do that at this present time.
That was something you touched on there, just getting out of the doldrums when you done an interview with Shane last November before the Donegal semi-final. You felt it was time that Armagh kind of resurrect themselves in terms of Ulster. But you kind of feel that the goalpost has kind of changed a little bit in that stance, that if they could establish themselves in Division 1 for next year, or I still think that like it is crucial that they kind of start to kick on as well when it comes to provincial football.
I think they have to kick on. What I would like to believe, and looking back in last year's campaign, is that Cavan winning Ulster will instill a lot of belief in numerous teams within the Ulster Championship, particularly within Armagh, because Armagh have competed against and beat Cavan in recent seasons. I think they have to be playing Division 1 regularly and more consistently to compete against the better teams in the country, and that's why it's important for Armagh to continuously put their best foot forward in this campaign to try to stay and maintain Division 1 football. And, you know, if they can compete against the teams and run them close and maybe get the odd result, that continues to instill confidence in the team to try to kick on and compete for honours come championship time.
As I touched on there at the start as well, this is a fixture that, of course, you would play in its heavy days back in the early noughties when, you know, they were dominating Ulster, featuring in big games, the latter stages of the Ireland series. Just actually looking up as well, 7 times they met in championship between 2000 and 2005. Your record is absolutely identical. There's 3 wins for both sides and 1 draw. And even though I was doing the total scores, aggregate scores, it was still a draw. It was Armagh over them 7 games, scored 6 goals and 76 points, 94 points, and Tyrone scored 2 goals and 88 points and 94 points. They couldn't be separated. So maybe some of those players in that era will have to don the boots and get out on the pitch one more time to settle those scores. And who are the king of Ulsters?
I would absolutely love that opportunity, so would, and I think all 30 players and 40 players from the squads back then would absolutely love that opportunity. Looking forward to the intense rivalry that we had back then, and the games was absolutely fantastic. As a player, you know, we brought out the best in each other, and I didn't realise the aggregate scores was actually matching up as well over that period of time. It just goes to show the intensity and how close both teams were together. But you know, it's fantastic days that you have to look back and with great enjoyment and satisfaction and say that you're part of those days. But you know, we're in a new era now, and Tyrone have been one of the leading lights in Ulster football over the last decade. And for Armagh to get back to those type of levels and heights again, they need to be competing with Tyrone, and there's an opportunity for them to lay down a marker on Saturday evening, and particularly given the fact that it's in our own home patch, and say that, you know, we are a team to be contended with this year.
Yeah, so Peter Canavan's point in Croke Park in 2005 actually only tied things up, didn't actually give Tyrone a 1-point lead. But it's mad to think after them intense games, it was another 4 years before you'd meet in championship. And even then, there was still a heavyweight element about it. It was the then Ulster champions against the Ireland champions. But the next meeting then, 2011, and correct in saying, was also your last outing for Armagh. That actually was only a third round qualifier. And that kind of probably just summed up kind of how far both teams had dripped off. By that stage, Donegal were just starting to and develop their dominance in the province. And from an Armagh point of view and a Tyrone point of view, it could kind of be said that that's what kind of the start of them two teams never really getting back to where they were in the early part of the noughties.
Yeah, listen, every team has their day, and, you know, for a good part of a decade, that Armagh and Tyrone team dominated Ulster, and it was only natural that you know, the end of the road would come at some point for those teams in terms of success. Tyrone did kick on and win more Ulster titles, obviously, in the last decade, but Armagh haven't reached those heights again. And listen, there's probably numerous factors to it, but I always look back and believe that the group of lads that I played alongside are some of the best players ever put on an Armagh jersey, and sometimes it's hard to get players to come in and fill the boots of those guys that went before them. But it's not taking away anything from the players that are currently playing. I just think that Armagh were very, very fortunate and lucky that we had a group of players together that were at the same abilities, with the same mindset all at one time.
Now, just look at the other game maybe as well in Division 1 North over the weekend. It's actually just on before that game on Saturday at 5 p.m. in Buffet. Donegal and Monaghan, they're no two strangers to themselves. Donegal actually ran up comprehensive victors in the league last year. Yeah. Probably more pressure on Monaghan kind of coming into this game, but from a Donegal kind of point of view, I don't know how much you can kind of say you're laying down a statement in a league match when you've had a little preparation, but it kind of still felt there was an element to that last week after what happened against Cavan in November of last year.
Yeah, listen, Donegal were possibly caught by surprise against Cavan last year, but it was a fantastic result for Cavan to go on win Ulster when a lot of people were tipping Donegal to certainly come out on top. And before that Ulster final, a lot of people would have been tipping Donegal to be the team to compete or go closest to Dublin in terms of the All Ireland, and it wasn't to be. So you would imagine that there would be a lot of trying to rectify those demons within the Donegal camp at the minute, and certainly their performance last week showed that they are still a force to be reckoned with. They still have top class players like Michael Murphy, Paddy McBrearty, Ryan McHugh, seasoned campaigners that are still at the top of their game. And for Michael Murphy, I think he maybe scored 6 points. If you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he scored 6 points against Tyrone last weekend, which is fantastic. Shooting from anyone's standards, and but his work rate continuously amazes me. He's a player that's probably in his early 30s now, constantly getting up and down the field, doing his bit for the team. But what a leader he is, and there's no doubt that they will bounce back to some capacity this year to try to rectify last year's demise in the Ulster final.
Yeah, even like if you look down to the team for Donegal that started against Tyrone last week, there was no real kind of new names, no one making their debut. Like, you might say Paddy Morgan, but he came in towards last year, so he started a bit of profile for himself. Whereas you look at Monaghan, there was quite a lot of new faces there. Like Aaron Mulligan really impressed me. Sean Jones, I know Andrew Woods was another player we're seeing towards the end of last year. So it does seem to be as if there's a little bit more kind of a transition period going on in the Farney County.
Yeah, there certainly is, and they've had some high-profile retirees over the last number of years, so it was only natural that younger boys were going to come in and try to make an impression. But for Monaghan, ultimately, to have the levels of success that maybe got them Ulster titles in the past, they still need the likes of Conor McManus is performing at a high level, and Carl O'Connell, boys that got there, and even the Hughes brothers, they're still pivotal figures in that Monaghan camp, and they rely heavily on those guys still.
Yeah, then the two Division 1 South games, they take place on Saturday. I suppose you can't really look more further than the Dublin-Kerry clashes. I think it's going to evoke memories of 2001, the factor meeting in Thurles again, obviously completely different environments, behind kind of closed doors. But in general, when these two sides meet the last couple of years, it just leads to high-scored, entertaining football. Even the league opener last year, 119 each. The Ireland games, 118 to 15, 116 each. Even the league game area that year in 3, Kerry won 118 to 214. So going on the evidence is definitely what we've seen from Kerry last week, and we know what Dublin are capable of. I don't see anything different happening on Sunday.
No, I can't see it. Listen, it'll be end-to-end football, but both teams will play, and sometimes it's overlooked that they do play players back in defensive positions, but it's their transition from defence to attack that I suppose sets them apart from other teams. They do it at a faster pace and get more bodies up to support their attack, probably more so than any other team does, and that's what the difference between Kerry and Dublin and the rest of the pack. Based on last week's evidence, you have to say that it's certainly going to be an attacking show for us all to watch and be entertained. And hopefully, if David Clifford can reach the heights that he did last weekend, kicking 3-6, then we're in for some Irish football.
Did you ever score a hat-trick as good as that yourself?
I did. I scored a hat-trick in the championship match, believe it or not. So I did back in 2003 against Limerick. So a great feeling. I think I finished that day with 3-4. So scoring 3-6 is a fantastic record. His last goal, I think, has been probably broke social media channels across Ireland this week. Is fantastic. So it was a great finish and great composure for still such a young player to be able to hold his head and just slot it in the way he did.
Yeah, it's mad to think he's still only 22. Like you think like we're probably even going to see the best of him for another 3 or 4 years if he keeps going the way he is. The big thing kind of for Kerry from last year was kind of their cautious approach. The way they set up against Kerry were kind of playing the two kind of defensive-minded wing forwards, and maybe it was because there was the element they didn't kind of trust their defenders. They went obviously with more natural forwards in their positions kind of last week. Defensively, they kind of looked okay, but the biggest thing I kind of came away from, I knew after like just the way the pattern of this game was after 10 minutes, I just remember saying to my dad, I was watching it, like, Kerry are just going to blitz this match, Galway just don't look interested. We still don't really know. I think the way the nature of the league is with the quick turnarounds as well with training, but we still don't really know defensively where Kerry still are at the moment.
Yeah, and they probably won't even be tested that much this weekend because we know that Dublin just, capitulate most teams that they play against, and it'll be the same against Kerry. They'll still score 18, 19, 20 points regardless of how Kerry's defence perform. But from Kerry's point of view, you would imagine that there will be a more attacking emphasis put in their play this year. For me, from the outside looking in, I think David Clifford and Sean O'Shea are two of the most talented footballers in the country, and you've got to utilise those boys to the maximum. With Paul Geaney in the ranks as well, an experienced player like him, and Killian Spillane having a couple of seasons behind him now, they're only going to add serious value to their attack as well. And I think, when you have serious weapons like that up front, you have to use it and utilise it to the best of your advantage. And last year, by playing the negative brand, which they did against Cork, didn't justify how Kerry should have gone about their business.
I think maybe something that might have, when you look back on over the winter time, if Kerry kind of had stuck to what kind of suits them kind of best, and they got over that hurdle against Cork and got through Munster, that, could they have stopped the sixth in a row last year, or was it still the case of just the way Dublin were going last year that nothing was going to stop them?
It's hard to know. Any team at the minute that has any aspirations of stopping Dublin has to put in a massive, massive performance. And, there's teams that are close to Dublin, but they still haven't got across that finishing line. And I'm talking about Mayo and Kerry in recent seasons. And for me, Donegal are still the next closest thing. And if Dublin are to be stopped in their tracks, it's going to be one of those three teams. And I really can't see any other team outside of the top four at the minute. Tyrone will always believe that they can, and maybe they might be able to find something different this year with the new management and all in place. But I just believe that it's between Donegal, Mayo and Kerry to stop Dublin's run. And whether that would have been last year or not, if Kerry had got through Cork, remains to be seen. But it's a difficult task for any team.
Yeah, it's certainly, there's no doubt about it. It should be a cracking game all the same on Sunday, even if it is going to be behind closed doors and still early days of the league, with just all the talent that's going to be on display. Also, as well, on Sunday, just kicking off slightly after that time at 2 p.m. in Pearse Stadium, Salthill, it's another derby. I suppose it's always going to happen in the league with the regional Galway versus Roscommon. Strange enough, though, despite the fact that they've met each other quite a lot in Championship, it'll only be their third league meeting since 2015. But even look at their Championship record as well, the last kind of couple of years, they're kind of swapping wins back and forth. So
yeah,
it always never really much between these sides, really.
No, there's never much. And listen, it's a local rivalry as well, and a rivalry that always brings the best in each team. Once again, there's something about local derbies that there's never seems to be too much between the sides, and that's going to be no different between Galway and Roscommon. Roscommon will probably have a wee bit more belief and confidence. Yes, they were still beat by 9 points last weekend to Dublin, but normally Dublin kick into double figures against teams as well. So they'll say that they run them close enough to an extent. Galway will be hugely disappointed after their performance and result against Kerry. So it'll be interesting to see if they have that bounce back ability this weekend. And if there's any team that they wanted to be playing to try to get the best out of themselves, then it's a local derby that they need, and playing Roscommon is the best tonic for them.
Going to put my bias for Scotland on here for a second, maybe thinking a little bit too far kind of ahead. I probably would have maybe been looking at it from the outset, like probably expecting us to be in a relegation battle, and kind of thinking if we could beat Galway, I probably expect the results to go the way they were in the north, that maybe Monaghan would beat Armagh, and just because Roscommon beat Armagh in the league last year, whereas Monaghan, maybe that more seasoned team, would be more adapted to a one-off game. But now the fact that Armagh has won that game, do you think maybe teams might be the two teams looking, thinking if we lose this, it's not the end of the world? Because not taken away from Armagh, but like they wouldn't maybe as battle hardened as would be for Monaghan in a one-off match.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Armagh and Roscommon have had some brilliant games over the last couple of years as well. most notably the one down in Portlaoise where Roscommon came out on top. Last year Armagh were quite comfortable for long periods in their league game, and then Roscommon pipped them and won it quite easily in the end. And you know, that's what I'm saying with Armagh. You know, last weekend's result and at certain stages showed me that maybe as a team they're starting to mature up even more, where they did allow a team come back at them, but they kicked on, they got the next couple of scores, and you know, if they had used that type of experience and composure last year against Roscommon, they may have won that league game in Armagh. So you'd hope that Armagh don't have to face Roscommon again. It's not a team that I particularly enjoy facing over the last number of years, and Roscommon seem to enjoy playing against Armagh. So I would like to think that Armagh possibly can get a result this weekend against Tyrone, and hopefully avoid any permutations of maybe playing Roscommon in the future.
Yeah, I'll take my own bias hat and say probably them 2 goals and as quick as much time probably was what turned that game last year in the Athletic grounds. Like, but from a Galway kind of point of view, maybe as crazy as might kind of sound, but is it still kind of possible to say that they're still actually suffering the effects from the COVID break last year, because they were absolutely flying it in the league? I think they had 4 wins from 5 for top of the table. They've played, I know there was a massive gap in between, but it's still been 4 games since. They've shifted some heavy defeats and it's still looking for their first win since inter-county football resumed last October.
Yeah, and you know, pre-COVID, they had the new management factor as well, with Porrick Joyce taking over the team, and you see that with new teams, with teams being brought over by a new manager from time to time, that there's a new lease of life given, and they had that, and they were allowed to play the Galway style of football. Once again, they were playing an attacking brand of football, which suited them the best, and they were getting results, and as you say, sitting top of the league, and they just haven't seemed to reach those heights since. And probably, you know, one team that COVID hurt the most has been Galway, but they're more than capable of getting a result against Roscommon, which you won't like to hear from me, but whether or not they'll be able to do that and get the heavy defeat from Kerry last weekend out of their system in a short period of time remains to be seen, and it'll be certainly a test of their character if they can do that. But I just think going into it this weekend, you know, Roscommon have a serious attack. Looking at some of the players to play in Roscommon forward line, you know, if you give them a chance, they'll always punish you, and Galway need to be at their best to beat them.
Look, you know, last time we played Galway in the league, they gave us a bit of a trim and salt to them. We turned around a couple of months later and bet them the championship. So it could be a good omen again. It could mean we might end up playing yourselves potentially in that relegation playoff with our record. So it wouldn't be the end of the world. Steven, thanks very much.
Playing maybe in a league final, maybe. Never mind relegation. Enough of
this
relegation.
That doesn't involve us having to have a serious win against Kerry. I know we bet them down in Clare in the league a few years ago, but I think they're a different proposition now.
Yeah.
Steven, anyway, thanks for your time. Just maybe one last ultimatum if I had to put you on the spot. If you had to choose between Liverpool seeing out top 4 or Armagh beating Tyrone this weekend, which one would you prefer?
Oh, Jesus. Oh, man. I'll take Armagh all day long.
That's the right answer. You won't get too much backlash for that now.
No, definitely not.
Steven, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.